All right, music fans, welcome. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for a few real people out there, just like you and just like me. I'm going to tell kind of a story about a band and some observations that still bug me to this day about what happened. Before I get there, though, Jerry Beckley's new album is phenomenal. It's a self-titled album, came out a few months ago, featuring a song that reminds me of a Beach Boys, Phil Spector kind of thing. It's called Crazy, and this is just a great album from start to finish. And I would go check it out. All right, Jerry Beckley, very reliable. If you don't know who Jerry is, he's in the band America. Okay, so I don't know. I guess I have to state the obvious to people. Otherwise, they're going to say, "Who's that?" Yeah, it's great music. And one of my favorite bands from the 1980s was a band called the Outfield. Uh, they epitomized everything I like about AOR and pop and rock and just all those qualities kind of rolled into one band. They had a lead singer that could kind of be like Sting to some degree, kind of reminded me of Sting, but um, wasn't as obnoxious as Sting vocally and probably as a person. I'm just throwing it out there. His name is Tony Lewis. Now, Tony Lewis passed away in 2020 in a very weird and sort of mysterious circumstance. And all the articles I read about this, even on the Outfield's website, and that's the band, the Outfield, right? Just to clarify. Okay, Tony passed away on October 19th, 2020, aged 62. Now, what was going on in October of 2020? Well, we all remember that was in the middle of the thing-demic, as I like to call it. And people, of course, were panicking and going crazy. There was about to be an election here in the United States. I think Rolling Stone had an article about Tony Lewis, and everybody says, yeah, the hit song Your Love, and everybody knows Your Love. And I'm actually so tired of hearing that song when it comes on the radio because I don't know, this band had a lot of other great songs. All the Love in the World, Every Time You Cry, Say It Isn't So, which I think is my favorite song by the Outfield. I mean, that Play Deep album from start to finish is really phenomenal. I mean, they had pioneered their own sound, and their own sound was just catchy as all get out. It just was unique and it was instantly fun and listenable. And what was depressing for me is Spinks had died in 2014, and he was the lead guitarist, I believe, of the band. And that was John Spanks. And so there was not going to be an Outfield reunion. The only surviving member is a guy by the name of Alan Jackman who played drums. And I think he's still out there doing his thing. What was depressing was everybody just ignored the album by Tony Lewis when it came out. It's called Out of the Darkness. And this tune called Into the Light, which was the first single, I'm like, okay, this has got to get on the radio. This was like the same way I get uh, when Voyage, the band Voyage, they have material out there and everybody's just ignoring it. Like, yeah, it's good music, but it's we've moved on. We're not going to play anything from a band that sounds like that. And so Tony Lewis releases, and go listen to the song Into the Light if you have a chance. You're gonna be like, okay, what Outfield album is this from? No, that Out of the Darkness album, about 80% of it is genius, right? Could have been some of the best material that Tony Lewis has ever been a part of. And then a couple years later, he's dead. And posthumously, I think they released some material that he was working on, like an EP called More Than I Dared. And everything about this was just underreported. And I get irritated. I don't know why. I'm mad too because this band doesn't get their due, and people just have focus tested all of their music down to this one song, which, yeah, it was their biggest hit song, hit number 6 in 1985. It's called Your Love. And some people call it Josie's on Vacation. That's how you know it's that song. But I would argue there's a song called My Paradise that came out like 2 albums later, which is phenomenal. The NBA was using a song called Take It All in 1991. They had a minor hit song with a tune called For You, but then you go to like No Surrender and Banging on My Heart and Since You've Been Gone, which is a pretty big song on both rock and top 40 stations from their second album called Bangin' or Banging on My Heart. I think it was just Bangin'. But if you listen to these albums, they're all just amazing. And it's, I don't know if it's a lack of recognition from the general public or because at the time the record label, and in two cases, really, you've got CBS and then MCA, which again, I've always called the musical cemetery of America because they didn't promote a lot of things very well. And one of the members of the band, I think it was uh, Alan, that left the band. I can't remember, but they were down to 2 guys on the MCA albums, and they were still really decent. I mean, they were better on the first 2 or maybe 3, but I think they kind of got a second wind on this album called Rock Eye in 1992, if you go listen to that. So the reason I'm bringing all this up is because not only did Tony Lewis get the shaft on probably his best work, uh, either in the Outfield or as a solo artist, I would consider it as good as anything the Outfield ever did. But then he passes away 2 years later, and it's just a weird circumstance where nobody knows why. It says suddenly and mysteriously, and it's not like I need to have the cause of death for closure, but it seems a little weird. Seems, I don't want to use the word suspicious, but why? Why would that happen to a guy that pretty much everybody liked? And it could just be life, 62 is the new 92 and all that stuff. And it started happening in 2020 and it hasn't stopped. And so I just think overall the band deserves better. And folks should go back and listen to those Tony Lewis albums, the full length album, and then this project called More Than I Dared, which was basically an EP of the music that he had been working on at the time of his death. I'm thinking that, he felt empowered after putting Out of the Darkness. He felt like, yeah, I could keep doing this and I still sound like Tony Lewis. Um, and he looked kind of the same, other than the mustache and the fact that he had gotten a bit older. But he was still playing bass and he was still doing what he's always been doing, or always had been doing at the time. So anyway, just one of my favorite bands, believe it or not. If they had put out more material, I would have been happier, and I could still probably dig into some of this material that came out later on in the 90s. And there was this album they did called Replay, and they had a tune called California Sun, which is another one of those songs. If you go listen to it, you're going to be like, okay, why wasn't this a huge hit? I don't care. People have to get over the fact that if a band that's not the newest flavor comes out with a really great song, because they still understand melody, they still know how to construct a great song, they're still doing the whole guitar solo thing. If a band like that comes out of nowhere, which is less and less likely because everybody's getting too old now to do that. But say this was 10 years ago, it should have been a hit. And the music industry just sucks. I'm just going to keep saying it because good music should just naturally float to the top. It shouldn't be suppressed. And I just don't know where people are who used to just listen to music, just the easiest thing to do, to listen to it and go, yeah, that's good. I like this. This is good. People would like this. Like you want to share it with your friends because you think it's a good song. And we used to do that in the old days. Now we kind of still do it because it's like the music underground. You know, I'll pass a song over to somebody. Where'd you hear this? Well, I didn't hear it on the radio. So again, it's the music underground. But I'll tell you what, the creators of this music are less likely to create if there is no support system in place to help them. And there isn't. And when that Tony Lewis album came out, I was just bummed out that more people weren't listening to it because it was phenomenal. Everyone I shared it with was like, holy crap, Batman, where's this guy been? And I'm like, yup, go share it, go listen to it. Um, I don't know if I was doing the whole album of the year thing back then, but that should have been my album or comeback album of the year or something. So again, Out of the Darkness by Tony Lewis is fantastic. And then something a little more current, kind of like the same scenario. A guy from a legendary rock band has an album out. Nobody's playing it, of course. Jerry Beckley from America. Modern Retro Radio. My buddies over there, they're completely aware of this. And I sent this to them and they loved it. So you might hear it over there, but you're probably not going to hear it anywhere else. God bless everyone. Please stay safe out there. And I will talk to you soon.